My name is Kanessa Jones, and I teach first grade at the H.L. Lubker Elementary in Ball Knob. Over this summer, the staff joined together in choosing 20 instructional elements to implement and to be used as our model of instruction to ensure best teaching practices were happening in all classrooms. E1. Providing scales and rubrics. Scales and rubrics are essential for student growth. It provides a better understanding of what mastery looks like for a particular skill. When planning my lessons, I start with the desired learning goals that need to be mastered at the end of the lesson. Then I establish evidence of learning by creating rubrics and scales to correlate with the level of understanding for each learning goal. At the beginning of each lesson, I explain the desired learning goals by clearly articulating the lesson I can statement to ensure the students have a clear understanding of the desired outcome. E2. Tracking student progress. It is important for students to track their progress. This allows students to see where they start and their growth over time. My students take our state-mandated assessment on a monthly basis as a way to monitor student learning progress. After each monthly assessment, we chart our whole class testing outcomes so we can use this data as a way to measure growth over time. This allows us to reflect on what we could do differently to improve and grow as learners. In addition to tracking our progress as a class, each student completes an individualized growth chart based on their performance. Being able to measure the outcome of our whole class as well as individual outcomes allows students an opportunity to become self-motivating for a greater good. E3. Celebrating success. Celebrating student success allows them to experience a sense of accomplishment. In doing so, this builds motivation and determination. Frequent celebration is key in motivating students in first grade to give their best effort on a continual basis. Goal setting is a focus at different levels throughout our classroom. We set class goals that support our social contract, as well as academic goals that monitor and measure academic achievement, and we celebrate when we reach these various milestones. E4. Informal assessments. Informal assessments are a quick measure of how the class is progressing, so immediate corrective feedback can be given to students. It helps flag students at risk so intervention can be given before the formal assessment. I provide numerous opportunities for my students to self-evaluate their learning and how confident they are about various skill sets through the use of a proficiency scale rating system from 1 through 5. At the conclusion of each lesson, I have the students check in by holding up a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 using their fingers to show their level of understanding. In some instances, I have the students demonstrate their knowledge by the use of whiteboards used as response boards by writing and showing what they know. E5. Formal assessments. Formal assessments are designed to measure individual student learning. They give information and serve as a reflection of the student's status at a certain point within a unit. As a grade level, we implement common curricular assessments for our students. After giving these assessments, we analyze testing outcomes and give collaborative feedback on different instructional approaches that provide student success used in our classrooms. E6. Chunking content. Chunking content of a specific skill set is when the material is taught in chunks or smaller parts, which are often referred to as digestible parts. This allows time for students to process pieces of the specific skill set before having to put it all together. As a grade level, we give our students pre-assessments to assist in planning effective instruction and meeting the students' needs. I use the data based on my student performance to provide appropriate chunking of content so that my students' understanding of the various skill sets are being taught. Chunking content allows me to monitor my students' learning over time by administering exit tickets. The information the exit tickets gives me helps me intervene rather sooner than later. E7, processing content. It is crucial to students' learning that they are given various ways to process content at a rigorous level. This allows students time to process at a deeper level the chunk of content learned. I implement Think, Pair, Share throughout the day during different subjects while teaching various skill sets. This allows all students the opportunity to share with someone. Also, grouping students such as Jigsaw Cooperative Learning is an effective way for students to gain more insight on the topic by sharing within small groups. E8, recording and representing content. There are two types of ways to record and represent new content: linguistic and non-linguistic. I use a variety of graphic organizers when teaching language comprehension through read-alouds. The graphic organizers allows me to assist students in organizing their thinking while making connections with others on a shared topic. During phonics, I use mnemonic devices to help my students remember certain generalizations, syllable types, and spelling patterns. I have hand motions that go along with certain phonics skills, and during instruction, I provide ample opportunities for my students to turn and talk as a way of summarizing learned content and address any misconceptions. E9, structured practice lessons. Structuring of lessons is imperative when engaging students with practice. First grade age students require teachers to demonstrate a vast amount of modeling in all subject areas. When learning a new skill, I do frequent structured practices with the whole class. I use the gradual release method, I do, we do, you do, for structured practice, making sure ample time is spent in each area of practice, making sure my students fully understand while closely monitoring and giving immediate corrective feedback. E12, engaging students in cognitively complex tasks. Engaging students in cognitively complex tasks is providing students with activities that allow them to think deeply about content. During language comprehension instruction allows for me to have my students engage in cognitively complex tasks by asking and answering questions, inferring, comparing and contrasting, retelling, and making predictions on a shared topic. Students are given the opportunity to explain what they learned and what they are still hoping to learn with their shoulder partner and table group. E13, providing resources and guidance. Teachers need to provide guided support and materials needed to scaffold students while they are engaged in complex tasks. As a first grade teacher, my job is to ensure that my students are provided with all the resources necessary for learning. As they grow as independent learners, more responsibility in choosing best resources are gradually released to them. Offering feedback is an ongoing process by me to my students throughout the day to allow them a chance to learn from their mistakes. E19, reflect on learning. Students need time to reflect on what they have learned. I use exit slips frequently as a conclusion to my daily lessons. The exit slips mirror the strategies used throughout the lesson. Students work on these independently, and I use the information they provide as a way to monitor student progress and skill development. As for the 2-column notes, I demonstrate this strategy with the help of my students when needed using chart paper. E23, noticing when students are not engaged and reacting. Awareness and reaction is key. It is essential that teachers be aware when students are not engaged and actively participating in the lesson. When I see that my students are not fully engaged, I do self-monitoring activities as a way to pull them back in and check for understanding, such as thumbs up, thumbs down, turn and talk, think, pair, share, take one, give one, or response boards. E32, motivating and inspiring students. Motivating and inspiring students has 2 parts, which are self-actualization and connecting to something greater than themselves. Students need to feel like they are part of something important. As a class, we have defined short-term and long-term goals. My students are aware of what it takes to reach these types of goals. We have both short and long-term goals for academics and behavioral success. As for the personal projects, my students spend time writing in their journals on a daily basis. They love to write about what they are interested in and to share out. E25, physical movement. Providing students with various opportunities to move around throughout the lesson helps with student engagement and stimulates their brain while continuing to learn. Physical movement is an essential part of my classroom. My students participate in center-type activities that allow them to move to different locations around the room. E30, academic games. Academic games is a great way to help students learn. Student engagement increases, and often they do not realize they are learning while having fun. With first grade, implementation of games is a must. I use the which one doesn't belong with all content areas such as word patterns, number patterns, images, and genres of books. We review vocabulary through a game called Quiz Trade. E33, establishing rules and procedures. Setting clear and obtainable rules and procedures is crucial for a successful school year. Rules and procedures need to be established immediately at the start of the year and revisited throughout the school year as needed. Rules and procedures make for a positive learning environment, and they allow learning to flow smoothly throughout the day. Learning time is not wasted when students know and understand the expectations, rules, and procedures. We are a Capturing Kids' Heart National Showcase School, so establishing rules and procedures is our main focus throughout the school year. As we see our social contract being broken, we have class meetings as a way to reflect on what we could do differently to ensure the best learning environment for all students. E36, acknowledging adherence to rules and procedures. Verbal and nonverbal acknowledgement must take place by the teacher when a student follows set rules and procedures. Students thrive on positive reinforcement and are more likely to continue to follow established rules and procedures when they know they will be recognized for making good choices. During our morning meeting and daily lunch, we take time to affirm and acknowledge students that are following our social contract. I model affirming my students verbally often when I catch them making good choices. Also, I use JoJo points as a point system to reward students for positive behavior. As they reach a certain amount of points, they are rewarded with tangible items from our class treasure chest. E39, understanding students' backgrounds and interests. When teachers take time to familiarize themselves with their students' background and interest, a sense of respect is established between both the teacher and students. The students know their teacher truly cares about them, therefore, they are willing to give their best efforts. When you know your students' backgrounds and interests, you know how they learn best. This is something that is seen as a priority in my class. I want to understand my students' backgrounds and where they come from so I can better understand them and their behaviors. A good way to do this is by conducting teacher-student conferences. E41, demonstrating value and respect for reluctant learners. The teacher must have the same expectations for all students. Teachers must make sure our biases does not affect our expectation towards specific students, and we should treat them with all with the same respect. I establish clear and consistent expectations for all my students on how they are expected to behave. I let my students know that they are loved and valued while establishing and setting boundaries. When I have reluctant students, I try to document what seems to be the trigger in their disengagement and adjust my lessons as well as daily routines when needed.